Good evening. I'd like to stand for the pledge, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks to all the veterans and their families for their sacrifice. Always appreciated. Want to welcome everybody this evening. A couple of things that are in the council's packets. We decided to do a report each month. We've done it sporadically, but we want to try and be a little more consistent now that things have kind of slowed down from the craziness and rushing through a lot of the things. So the report from the finance department for the council is basically about the millage rate, explaining the millage rate, what the state recommends, and what we as a municipality need to do in order to maintain our budget. So bottom line is, to maintain our budget, we will need a slight increase. If we do what the state says, it would be a decrease, in which case we would have to amend the budget to make some pretty severe cuts. If we do the rate that we require as a municipality to maintain what we have for revenues and what we need for expenditures, because the state recommends a drop, rollback, it would look as though the city is doing, I believe it's a 16% increase. Actual increase from where it is now is more like a 3%, but you have to go by the recommendation rollback, and then when you figure it up, it looks like it's a 16%. So, does the council have any questions with the packet or the millage? It explains, it gives some examples as far as the price of a piece of property and what it would mean to the individual that would own those price ranges. Find it in here.
I'm concerned about raising, while we're raising the millage rate.
Well, a lot like Winder, in order for Winder to make their budget, they had to raise the millage. We don't have to raise the millage that drastically, but like I say, actual to be able to do the budget, it looks as though it's roughly a 3% increase. But when you're dealing with a millage rate, when there's a recommendation to lower your millage rate, because the state says, well, you should have more income because you've built a certain number of homes and you've added this and you've added this. So therefore, you should be able to drop your millage rate. Most years, as you can see in this report, we have been able to do that. If you go back to 2015, what the millage rate was at that time was 11.864, and in 16, the council rolled it back to 11.714, and so on. So right now, where our millage is, no, I'm sorry, I was looking. It was 5.77, and then it dropped to 5.13349. until 2020, where we were able to drop it to 4.03. What we need in order to just make the budget is something in the neighborhood of 4.34, 4.43, which is in this packet, 4.345. So if you look at what it is now at 4.003, for us to have an increase of 4.345, it's like a 3% increase.
Mhm.
However, because the state recommends to roll it back, I believe, to roughly 3%.
3%.
And you say, well, we need to have it at 4.345. When you do the math, it looks like we're asking for a 16.64% increase, and that's not actual. Unfortunately, that's the way the government does their figures.
Is the state, when they come up with that recommended rollback, are they taking into account that we're not eligible for LMIG or grants or anything?
None of that. They look at, like, your growth, based on different reports, and they say, well, the municipalities they've increased their revenues because more homes, there's more tax base, and all of those factors. So therefore, you should be able to roll back to this rate. But with the things that we have in our budget in order to be able to do those necessary projects, if we roll back to the recommended state level, then we're going to have to, probably at the first of the year, take some serious look at some of our budgetary needs or wants, and cut them. So
But we had a lot more expenditures in the budget in certain areas this year than we needed.
it's possible that there could be cuts that could be made, but as it stands now, I think after 4 3-hour sessions and 2 other sessions, I think we've pretty well come up to a consensus that we passed a workable budget. Now, then this comes out after, obviously. It's been nice to have this prior to the budget hearing.
Right.
Unfortunately, it didn't come out then. So all of this information was received, and April worked with the county to make sure that she had the right numbers, and the state, and came up with this report to show, what the millage is about, some of the benefits of, what these taxes do for the citizens of Statham. Property taxes are used for, and there's 24 items, and that's probably not everything, but, and by the way, this is available as open records. Anyone that would want, they could come up and I'm sure get a copy of this report. But it goes into a good bit of detail. It explains it, I think, very well, and shows the need to maintain the millage rate. But there again, it's something that I need the council to look over, review, and then it would come up for it has to be advertised. If you do the rollback, there's no advertising required, because you're actually, in essence, cutting people's taxes. If you stay the same rate that we are now, effectively, even though we haven't made any change, we're still raising the taxes, the millage rate, therefore we'd have to advertise.
Yes.
So any changes that would stay the same or go up to the 4.345, we're going to have to do the necessary advertisements in the newspaper, and let the public know, then have a public meeting, and then before it would go to a vote. So it would still, am I correct, Counselor, they would still vote some way on, what would it be, the 20th? To say we're going to stay the same, or we're going to go with the rate change.
Correct.
And then we do the public hearing, well, we do the advertisements and then the public hearing.
Other way around, you do the advertisement and then you vote. But the notice has to be given before any vote on the millage rate. And if the decision is to increase the millage rate, there's no need to touch the budget. If the vote is to roll back, then that is going to ultimately trigger a balanced budget problem and a budget amendment, and that entire budget amendment process will have to start in order to bring our budget into line.
And do the same thing, we have to advertise.
Correct.
Public hearing for the budget all over, and, okay, so.
So my concern was that the budget increase that we're asking for now was based on a budget where we spent a lot more money last year than we have in the previous years. So we can look at 19 and 20 at our spending in certain areas and say, hey, we spent more money here, we spent more money there. I want to take an objective look at where we're needing the money. Because if I'm understanding it correctly, the taxes, the fees, and everything is factored in when the state recommends what they're recommending.
No.
It's not?
They don't consider all the things that we as a municipality have to consider. They're looking at suggested revenues, and I'm maybe not explaining it as well as I could. Do you have any input on it?
I'm no finance expert, but effectively what you said, just said was correct, which is when the state makes its recommendations, it bases it on historical numbers that are inputted from audits. And so, as y'all know, we're still playing a little bit of catch up with audits. So their number is probably miscalculated or a little misleading.
Okay.
The better way to approach this analysis is to look at, frankly, the budget. And if you are comfortable and confident in the budget that was adopted, it's better to have your millage rate reflect that budget.
Right.
Because that y'all have made, value judgments on what level of services you want to provide to citizens. Does there need to be a budget increase in this department, a decrease in that department? And the budgeting, it's almost like you budget what services you want to provide, and then you adjust your tax rate to make sure that you get the income necessary to meet those figures.
Right.
I know that seems a little counterintuitive, and I know that most people at their home figure out what their income is and then spend. But we're a little bit different because obviously the services that we're providing, we've made value judgments on that.
Yeah.
So now that since we've already got a balanced budget adopted, unless you want to go back and restart the budget process and change your mind based upon this suggested rollback rate, it's kind of two different ways of tackling the same problem, but you've already started one way. So unless you just want to completely, redo the process, that's the course you've plotted.
And that's what I was saying,
And the
that,
state could be behind in their figures too.
right, I
You're
believe,
behind because it was the school.
I believe they were basing this on the 2018 fiscal year, because they didn't have 19, which is done now, but they didn't have that data. And we're working on the fiscal 2020 audit. So, next year could be a whole different game that they say, well, you need to increase. We don't know, but
We're probably never gonna say that you need to increase,
more than likely not.
but when you decrease, when you roll back, they look at it and say, oh, they don't need that money. They're doing fine. So sometimes rolling back can actually hurt you on the millage rate. Just staying the course, staying the same, is usually a good idea.
Well, we had 4.19193 last year, and it was decided to roll back to
Roll back.
4.003. Well, if we'd have stayed at the 4.193, we would have still had to go up about 0.150.
Have you done the math on the average home, what that really will be an impact on the citizens? Because I think last year, when I looked at it, it wasn't that much money when we rolled back per, per citizen, per household. It wasn't a whole lot of money.
No, I'm thinking last year that I figured up it was something like $12.
Yeah,
And I said, personally, I would rather continue to pay that $12 than to get the $12 back, and next year you need 40.
yeah.
I don't know what it is in here, off the top of my head, I don't, remember, but there were several, examples that April put together. If you had a home that was, 150,000, it would be this much more, and if you had a home that was 200,000, but.
That would be helpful. I mean,
Yeah.
we don't want to raise taxes, and I agree with that, but you got to pay the bills too, so,
But the recommendation was to roll back to, from the state was to roll back to 3.725. What we need is 4.35, so if you take that difference, that's where you come up that it says you'd be at 16.64% increase. But actual, you're going from the 4.003 to the 4.345, which is more like a 3%, but they don't do their math that way. So it makes it hurts the city because it makes it look like the city is trying to gouge the taxpayer, but we have to go on what the state's recommending, and we know what we need to make the bills. So, we look at the reality, or we look at the numbers that were given, and the numbers were given makes it look a lot worse than what reality is, and that's about a 3% increase versus what they're saying is 16.64%. The report is pretty detailed, and it gives a lot of reasoning, explains like rollback and the difference in the point view. I'm trying to find the page with a couple of examples for what homeowners would be looking at on a commercial, agricultural.
And also, when people get their tax bills, they look at it and it looks like their taxes have gone up when it's really the value of their homes. And, you basically haven't raised the taxes, but the value of their homes has increased. And a lot of people don't understand that as well.
Right.
They think their taxes went up, so.
Any other questions on this?
I don't have a question on, the millage, Mayor, but I did want to ask, I don't know if, you had anything else from finance, did we ever hear back from, the feds about the code number? Do you know a date on that?
We did get I don't know the exact amount, but we did get a deposit, and we'll have to do a budget amendment probably after the first of the year to appropriate where those monies would go, because we can, we're kind of committed to like water exploration and sewer improvements only. So we probably are going to have to, as I understand it, do a budget amendment either between now and the end of the year or first of the year, and it's kind of recommended. The auditors say it would be better after the first of the year because then you have a 6-month idea on your revenues and things of that nature, but then you could specify it in a special account and earmark it to do a specific thing like drill a well, So, but yeah, it's 500. Don't hold me to it. I think it was like 512, 521, And then 1 year from the anniversary is the other half. So, and it was up and down, as everyone knows, it's gonna be this, and then it's like, no, then they changed something else, and so, but we did get a deposit recently. It's in there, I think she's kind of put it in a box.
This is the first two.
Yes. Yes. So yes, it was finally deposited recently. Any other questions?
One more question, and then we can move on to the police department. We had voted to do bonuses for the city employees. Have those bonuses been dispersed yet, or where do we stand?
No, they have not. We figured up a prorated amount because if you were here for 8 months, you'd get X amount because it works out to so much a month. If you're here for the full 12 months, you get the full amount.
Yeah.
And I was hoping to do that next month, but it has not been done, but it's not forgotten.
Okay.
So, but we are.
I just wanted to bring that up to let the city employees know that we haven't done about it.
I've had conversations with several of them, so, about it. Chief walked in and walked back out.
Yeah.
So he provided a printed report, pretty basic, just kind of gives you an idea of, number of reports, number of citations of 107 reports, 40 citations, 52 of them were traffic warnings, 14 accidents, 30 arrests, 8 warrant, I guess that's a violation, picked up on warrants, is that what that means?
Either a failure to appear or probation violation in general.
Okay. And then 7 that were drug or DUI related. And they do their checks on a daily basis. Currently, because of the manpower, the chief is running a shift. Captain Davis is on a shift. And we have 2 people on from 11
11 to 7.
11 to 7. So that's Officer Russo and Officer Eccles. So that way we have 24-hour coverage, but there is some overlap during the day, but we have coverage during the day, but we need it more at night. So, and the chief does not want one officer on duty at night by themselves, so there's double at night. So.
So the sheriff's office is covering weekends?
And the sheriff's office. And some of the weekends, I think the chief and Captain Davis are.
And our part-time guys coming
Yeah.
in when he's available to catch.
Yeah, we have Officer Rucker, he covered the other weekend, the entire weekend. But he helps out wherever he can, and he's working full-time at the DA's office. So we have some coverage, and, does the chief have, has he offered, positions? Because I was involved with some interviews, but I didn't.
We're doing the background, and this background is completed on that, we can send it for this site, then yes, we will.
And that possibility of 1, 2?
We want one right now, 2's in the works.
Any question?
Yeah, so it says we're down 4 slots. Does that include the 2 new slots that we just put in the budget? This may be a question that only the chief can answer. Are we having better luck pulling candidates as far as the number of candidates?
This week, yes. We've had quite a bit of interest this week. We have interviewed at least 3, just last Friday. So of those 3, 2 are the candidates that we're talking about. So, and there are more interest. We have a few applications that are out, haven't been turned back in yet. So, yeah, we're doing.
So compared to the previous salary, we're getting more candidates than what we did before.
Absolutely.
That's great.
I would like to bring up something, like I talked to to the chief about it, and mainly because the mayor and his wife live in the same subdivision that I live in. And, you know, I don't know how to get, neighborhood watch kind of started. There was a, John?
To Tacoma, Greg Tacoma.
Not me.
Not me. Do I need to call 911? But there were some situations that I had somebody walk in my house. It was scary. Alan's usually home. He wasn't home at that given time. And, you know, and just because of the fact that I know the chief, I called him up and said, I just want y'all to be aware of this, you know. But he says, unless you call it in and it's actually on record, you need to make sure it's on record. But there has also been someone in the subdivision, and because I live so far, I'm at the very back, somebody, like, one night, it shot off like 15 rounds. It wasn't where I'm at, but it was down there somewhere, and it's inside the city limits. I know you can't fire a gun.
He was arrested.
Was he?
Yeah, he was a little overly inebriated and, was shooting an automatic and it was at the edge of our development, but it was county, but still, it was taken care of pretty quickly, and we appreciate that.
I don't know if that's the same person I'm talking about, but.
With the rapid fire,
Mm-mm.
and recently,
I think there's another one.
the other night,
You know,
we figured he must be back.
Yeah.
It is, but it's still inside the city limits, you know. My husband, he's got a bow. I mean, if we want to, as many deers we get in our backyard, you know. All I'm saying is, because I can't pinpoint, you know, and I'm not sitting up there with binoculars watching on my neighbors, you hear it, and if anybody's around gunfire, it echoes. So you don't know exactly which area it comes from. I just know it sounded close. So I don't know what we could do as far as having people watching out for it. You know, I know if I'm out of town, I usually, you know, call up the police department or, you know, I just think it's a bunch of kids running around the neighborhood as far as playing pranks, as far as opening my door and knocking, you know, on the windows and things like that. But firing a rifle, not a rifle, firing handguns is totally different. So, I mean, if anybody has any suggestions, especially someone who lives in subdivisions that, you know, have neighbors that can help watch out for each other, be willing to help any way I can.
And as y'all saw, the Blue Line Solutions is working down at Bear Creek Middle School, putting that system in, because the city changed the speed limit on Broad Street and everything had to be reapplied for permit-wise. It delayed it. It might be at earliest in December, but I was told probably in January before they can put it in. But all the permitting had to be reapplied, or they've been done back to back or even simultaneously. So, any other questions on the report? Okay. Next, you have in your packet is Public Works. Jordan put this together that showed how many leaks and how many taps, and there were a couple of where they had to bore under the road. They have some more on the list to be bored. We did one on 8th Street had to be bored under the road and tapped, and then one or two out of Doc McLaughlin. And now, they're trying to keep up with the demand with the grass. I just offered one guy wanted just part-time, no more than 30 hours because he didn't want to mess up his VA, and so he seems to be a real go-getter. So he will start tomorrow. up to 30 hours a week. And, I just offered another guy, this evening. He signed some paperwork and, hopefully he will be walking in the door on Monday, and I believe it's the 27th, okay, off by one day. So we'll hopefully get these guys a little bit of relief. But
Gen operator? No?
Don't pick that scab.
Well, we need an operator.
We don't need a full-time operator.
Okay.
What we need is a full-time shelter. So,
And will this get Public Works fully staffed?
no, there's still, one will replace Raymond, finally. We had two that said yes, and then last minute, their employer offered them more money, and so they stayed. So we lost two good candidates. So, technically, the guy that accepted tonight will replace Raymond, and then you have a part-time guy, and so we could do two part-time and one full-time, and still meet the budget requirement that was, approved by the council. So we're looking, still some possibilities, but, I offered another guy this afternoon, and then he says, well, but I want to go on vacation the end of the year, so, I'm going to say no right now. January, he may decide, yeah, but, so we're going to hold on to his app. I think he would do all right, but it didn't work out. Any other questions as far as Public Works? Okay. So you all have the SPLOST 23 agreement, which we all had talked about, and there was this is because of the amendment, correct?
Correct.
There was a mistake that was made. Would you like to run with this?
Sure, I'm happy to.
I would appreciate
If
it.
if y'all will turn to the second to last page in your packet, it's at the bottom that has number 13. I'll be able to explain what happened. You'll recall that we approved this, and our numbers were $3.3 million for water and sewer infrastructure, $1 million for stormwater, $1 million for roads. The stormwater and the roads line items, we just threw the $1 million number out there as a placeholder, frankly. We didn't have any basis for it. We just wanted to create those two categories because if SPLOST collections exceeded anticipated revenues, and if we were able to retire our bond debt and our JIPA loan, we wanted to be able to have other categories that we could use SPLOST money for. So that $1 million was just a placeholder. That placeholder was not satisfactory to the county attorney. He did not feel comfortable putting such a high placeholder number there when we're anticipating revenues somewhere between $2.8 and $3 million, or at least that's what they're anticipating. And I said, okay, so it's just a degree. You don't like the $1 million number. What if we reduce it down to $100,000? He said that would be fine. So this is what I said. Okay. This is what the county voted on, and all we've got to do is ratify this, reducing our placeholder numbers from $1 million to $100,000. Doesn't change anything. We still have the ability to use SPLOST monies for those projects if we want. If we get more than $100,000, we can go over. Again, it's just a placeholder, but that's the reason why we have to actually ratify it, because there is a written change in the document. Make sense?
Yeah.
And this will be voted on.
It will.
At the end of at our regular council meeting, but we need, because it's technically amended, and then you just heard the explanation. So when we have our council meeting, if you read over it between now and then we have to go through the signature process again, as you can see in page 10 and 11. any questions that you have between now and then, the administration should be able to answer. If you called in or stopped in, or any legal aspect, I'm sure Counselor would be able to take care of the legal aspect. So that's the purpose of the SPLOST agreement being in here again. So, any questions on it? Okay. At this time, we have the Lauren Hall Estate. You have a final plat in front of you. I believe you
Mayor,
have.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh,
There's a mistake on the agenda. This actually isn't a final plat approval. And it's my mistake for not catching it.
okay.
What this is the two variances that were previously denied by council have come back.
Okay.
And so we need to vote, or we need to review and consider those two variance requests. The two are to reduce the front building setback to 20 feet and to reduce the impervious surface setback from 150 feet down to 100 feet. And the plat that you have shows those two. It has a 20-foot building line on the front along Lakewood Drive, and then you'll see a dotted line running through the middle of these two tracks that shows the 100-foot impervious setback line. So, I'm sorry to interrupt you, I just had to jump in.
No, I'm glad you corrected that, because I thought it's odd that it said final
Right.
plat, so, welcome.
If you would like, there's a couple other things that that you'll need to be aware of. And Stanton Porter's here representing the Hall Estate. Recall that when this was originally presented, it was 3 individual lots. The Hall Estate has reduced it down to 2 lots. The other item, and this is something Mr. Porter and I talked about beforehand, you'll recall on the Ellington Farms variances, there was some concern about a couple of those lots having flooding issues.
Mm-hmm.
And when the Hall Estate first came before the council, that was one of the major issues that was expressed. I proposed, or ran by Mr. Porter, the 2 conditions that we used in the Ellington variances, which were that prior to final plat approval, the owner/developer civil engineer will determine the highest water elevation from flooding within the subdivision boundaries. Such elevation shall be indicated by a note or a line on the final plat. That's 1. And number 2, that dwellings shall be required to be constructed with a finished floor elevation that is a minimum of 2 feet above the highest water elevation from flooding shown on the final plat. Mr. Porter indicated there was no objections to that proposed condition. That's an idea that might solve some of the concerns that y'all previously had about flooding.
Well, the elevation of this lot, that's not gonna be a problem. Because it's very steep.
His engineers apparently already,
We had our engineer go out and look at it, and also Joe Goodman, right here at on-site, come out and look at the property too, and believe, and that's one of the reasons that certainly not, have no objection to those conditions being placed on this approval, because we don't think that'll be an issue with the construction of the houses here. So certainly no objection to those conditions being placed on the variances in the final plat approval.
Council have any questions on this? Anything that needs to be clarified?
I have a question. Hall property has a old pond there. What's gonna happen with it?
the pond will still be there. It'll be subject to code enforcement if it's not being properly maintained.
Are they gonna update it or delete it?
Based on the plat, and Mr. Porter can verify this, it looks like it's gonna remain. I don't see any proposed improvements on it this time.
As far as I know, it's gonna remain, I understand it's very, very shallow, there's not, it's hardly even a pond right now. But we did have somebody look at it and say that it structurally is sound, I mean, it's not a dam about to bust or something on it, so, as far as my discussion with my client was that I believe that it'll stay there.
Well, mosquitoes are bad, trees are down in it, and to me, that's just to bring more mosquitoes in. There are people gonna be living in the area, so whomever is gonna own it needs to do something about it, either update it or delete it.
Yeah, we need to actually, somebody needs to look into the code enforcement on that particular, nature of that situation.
And I certainly think it'd be with, talking about having it cleaned up, that I would certainly think that's part of any plan that they have in building a house on this lot. So somebody's gonna wanna live there, they don't want, something that's unsightly or certainly producing a lot of mosquitoes for everybody, that the person that lives there would have the worst, so.
Well, if anybody, any citizens, it's online, so anybody wants to take a look at it, more than welcome to.
Any other questions on that? So at our next scheduled meeting, we consider these two items then for the impervious setback and the setback from the road, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And we'll have the language that we previously had back on the March meeting on the agenda, so it'll be very, very clear.
Any other questions on the wall? Anyone sign up for citizen input?
We have.
Thank you.
I mean, yeah, we've got courtware number 3, the courtware solution.
Oh, it was,
Oh, yeah, you could.
I think it got attached. I'm just wondering why it was attached.
It's just right.
Yeah. Okay.
So you can run through that, but I'm gonna drop this with you guys right quick. This is just basically migration. That's what I'm here to talk to you guys about and answer any questions if you need. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't know if you were gonna read what was on it and.
Go around.
Well, this was supposed
It's, just authorizing you to sign the agreement.
I vaguely remember some of the
Okay,
conversation.
you want me to, I
Yes,
just found
if you-
mine. Okay, so currently courtware is our RMS. It's our ticket all the way to court, system that we currently already have. So we currently pay $950 plus anything above a $950 mark, we pay $21 per ticket.
Per paid ticket.
Per paid ticket. Out of the last 6 months, we've already gone up to and have expended at least
At least 1,100 each month.
1,100 each month. So we're already going over those numbers, which I bring that to your attention because we're post-COVID. We're writing more tickets. We're bringing in more. The migration system that I just gave you there is because it's going to be a mandate. It's not a change in the courtware. It's going to stay courtware, but they're moving to this system. It's called Justice One. It starts with the tickets. Starting January 1, they'll roll out the 2022 to June is what the contract was recommended to be up for. So that being said, it would be at a $1,200 rate, flat rate, nothing else. By getting on in the beginning in January and rolling this out with them, we're going to be helping them go through the quirks per se of the system. We're going to be saving our migration or our, what do they call that?
Conversion.
the conversion rates, we won't be charged any conversion rates whatsoever for all of our, now we're talking about RMS, courtware, and our ticketing. We got e-ticketing, RMS, which is our records management system, which holds all of our, reports that every one of the officers write out here, plus the courtware, which is per system, per se, but it starts with ticketing. And then it's only gonna be at a $1,200 flat rate fee. And that flat rate fee doesn't stop in June. It's a 6-month contract, so we could get it caught up with our budget year, because they brought it to our attention and it's halfway through our budget year already.
So it'll be like a fiscal year?
It will
That will fall with our
start
fiscal year.
going with our fiscal year, because January 1 starts their rollout on it. The problem that we're having right now is that they don't want to work on what we currently have, or they're not trying to update what we currently have. So when I'm trying to pull in tickets from the officers, which come in through Cloud Top, which is just a cloud, and it comes into my system, it's missing a little bit of documentation. So I have to go in and edit every one of those tickets to match exactly what the ticket says on it. And they're not willing to change that right now, because they're migrating to this system, so they're not gonna update this system much longer,
So what are we
which is what we
gonna
already had. We're still gonna go where we're gonna be forced to go to that. So by jumping on the beginning, which would normally cost $1,700, it's only gonna cost us $1,200, and it's flat, and it's not gonna change until they make that agreement with us to change that, and we agree upon it.
do? So are we kind of saying, let's get it done?
Let's do it.
Now,
It's basically, it's gonna save the city, what did I think?
By helping with
Yeah.
debugging
Right.
the changes, they're
Right.
cutting the city a break.
Absolutely.
We're a beta site, we're a
Yeah.
test site.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking, I was listening to this right here, I was telling the mayor, I said that just to look at some of these things right here, it would cut some time.
Absolutely.
I mean, like driver's license, scanner built in, things, the time looks to me like it would cut it in half.
Not only that, but when you're looking at the cost effectiveness of this as well, we can do a ticket on a tablet when we go to the system. We no longer have to have the big computer in there. We can do it all on our tablet. We can actually do it on a cell phone. We're gonna be able to do it more efficiently and effectively.
Which
Or we
would
can have it
save
done.
the city money in the long run, because they're doing tough book, right?
Right?
So, you know, it's, once this is implemented and it's up and running,
Mhm.
tough book bites the dust, it's cheaper to buy a tablet, than even buying
Yeah.
Because it's automatically Wi-Fi, because we currently pay for Wi-Fi plus a tablet.
Yeah.
We currently pay for the plus.
There you go.
So we just put this software on.
Well, that's just saving money.
It's already gonna be on there, because we got unlimited amount of who we put it on, where we put it on, so long as we keep it monitored.
I thought those tough books were a little pricey myself.
Well, we need it at the time.
We've got to
I know,
keep up with
for
time,
what you get,
exactly.
I mean,
Right.
Because what happens is that we keep falling back, and people, you know, we have to move forward.
Right,
We have to.
right.
We used to not have cell phones, we get cell phones now, we used to not have TVs. You know.
See, we're gonna be able to use those cell phones to do the tickets. We're gonna be able to use those cell phones to pull in GCIC, which is completely and totally unheard of. I run the GCIC.
I remember when cell phones come in, you bag phone, I know it's gonna say, hold on, but
I'm
do
with
you remember how much it cost? Like, after 9 at night on the weekends was free?
Right,
But other than that, them things were costly.
right.
And, you know, everything eventually comes around to, you know, integrate, but we got to do that. I mean, we have to keep up with it.
Right. So, y'all have any more
I
questions?
think it's a great idea.
Somebody that works in this business,
Okay.
that's not a lot of money for our RMS, it's certainly not at all, I know that.
Absolutely.
My only question is, I know we're getting a discounted rate to, basically beta test for the first 6 months, we're expecting it to go up to $1,700 a month.
No, sir, that's what I'm trying to tell you, that was an incorrect calculation on
Yeah.
that. That's what they would be charging us if we got onto it after they already implemented it.
So going after the first 6 months, that we're expecting that at $1,200 to stay.
Not, no, sir. It's staying at $1,200
We're locked in.
until we
Right.
each have to do a written, we can give them 90 days. If the mayor and you guys decide, hey, we don't want to do court no more, we have to give them a 90-day notice. That's in the contract. And so, they have to give us 90 days as well. But I'm gonna be honest with you, you're looking at a couple of years before it completely gets completely migrated from the ticket aspect of it to the court, because that all has to be changed and migrated. They're starting with the tickets in January, so I would definitely anticipate at least taking a couple of years for the total migration to go to what it is. And here's the other thing. they have actually broadened their horizons, and they have their own, and I know you guys aren't gonna know what this is, but it's a metro header. Metro headers are, if you're familiar, they have gotten their own metro header. And so we no longer have to go throwing around, a subcontractor to get our GCIC. They provide it for us now at this point. And you guys purchased the Mac Daddy when you purchased it. You can't get anything more added to what we already have. Because we're already Cloud Cop, we're already Azure, we're already safe and protected and
And we're
everything.
no longer gonna be paying per ticket.
Correct, ever. My knowledge.
Portware is one of the top 2 softwares that incorporates both tickets through to the court from start to finish. So we've got a good software company.
That's really good.
And they've been good to us, and that's how they, they came to us and said, look, you're one step closer if you get in on the ground floor, and that's why we're here tonight.
Right.
Any other questions for?
But I do want to say we appreciate the work you do.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thanks for bailing me out. I couldn't have explained it like that.
Anybody that's running for council, y'all want a copy? I mean, yeah, I don't have mine, and Mr.
Do you have
Mayor,
any extras?
and
I got
there's one, and,
you have a couple extras.
okay, that way y'all can take a look at it too.
So, no other questions on that? Then yes. Oh, okay.
Oh, you already have one?
I guess we go to the citizen input, section. There were no one signed up. Any public comment that's not signed up? I'm gonna open up a can of worms.
No.
So, all right.
I do have something that, when we were talking about Ellington Estate, the mobile home that was brought in, there was probably a lot of issues with the neighbors, and it is not a part of the Ellington Estate. It was another piece of land that was there, and, so a lot of the neighbors were very upset because what was placed there isn't even the same size as what was there prior to.
It was a regular trailer at one time, but now it's a double.
No, it was a double wide, but it was a lot bigger double wide than whatever that is right now. I don't even know what it is. It's very small.
It could be one of those like construction.
Here's the problem that I'm having is the beaver pond. I drove by the other night and the beaver was sitting there on the side.
There we go, the beaver, Jim.
So that's just not, it's not a good thing to have that and the water. It's just, it's not a good thing for, if somebody ever buys that, which I can imagine who would buy that, but, it's contaminating the water, the groundwater there. And somebody needs to do something about it, and it's been going on for years. But,
Actually, one of the first complaints that a lady came to me after I got sworn in with the beaver situation.
yes, and
They were a problem.
and they're big, and they're big boys. And so I got on my golf cart and took off, but I'm just thinking that the city really needs to work on that because that's actually hurting the groundwater.
My understanding though is that goes to private property, because we went through this last year,
And something needs to be done.
and
There you go.
I think there was a business that worked
Oh,
and opened things up, and, but,
But the
that's the
beavers
problem
are-
with the beavers, and
The
I've
beavers,
talked to
yeah.
DNR. It's almost like their scent is in that area, so even if you trap them and take them somewhere else, they will eventually find their way back.
I know, it's not good.
So it's an ongoing thing,
Yeah.
but, I guess the city would have to look at exactly who is the owner and,
Right.
to find out what our obligation is and what that individual's obligation is.
Well, half of it's probably Jim, and the other half is the owner who owns that property with the mobile home on it.
Okay.
So, it's a big concern for me, because that's that's contamination really, really bad. It's been going on for years, and I'd really like to see something at some point done about it. I know it's an issue, and we just need to know how to solve that issue. We gotta be able to solve the problem. And
I think it might be something Jordan.
I'll talk with, Jordan tomorrow on it, and we'll go out, we'll take a look.
They're cutting, I mean, you can see where the beavers are cutting they're chewing the bark off the trees around the edge
Yeah.
of the pond. And so it's not just one, but that was a big boy.
No, you're right.
But, you know, we have to know exactly what our obligation is,
Yeah.
who owns it, because my saying is, you don't paint your neighbor's house. So we gotta find out,
Right.
We've got to do some homework.
you know, put the onus,
Yeah.
if it's gonna be a co-op type of thing, that part of the responsibility of the city, and part of it is the landowners.
Yeah.
You know, but I will address that tomorrow and,
There might be
see what we can do to move forward on that one, but,
something in ordinance too, I don't know.
Oh, the big old beaver.
Yeah, Marcia, she was telling me, she said, Miss Tammy, you wouldn't believe the size of those things.
Now, reading that out of gun, I never heard gunshots.
Yeah, I know that,
so,
are you coming at the end, huh?
I'll try twice and get my way up.
Mm-hmm.
so, before we move on, is there any questions for the chief by the council members? No? We all right?
I thought you had a question for the chief.
You can answer.
Got a question for me?
I was just asking them about the member candidates, but they answered the question.
So,
And I made a comment about some gunfire that had went off in our neighborhood, like quite a few rounds, and he says he thinks it's the right person, I think it's the wrong person, but, you know, just gotta be careful, that's all.
Yeah, no, definitely give a call, so we can have it recorded.
I know, that's what I told her, I said, that's one thing she said, even though you know him, you got to call it in, and that's absolutely correct. You know, have it on record, you know. You know, you can't, one thing that I took, when I took gun safety, was the simple fact that you don't know, you've got to know what kind of firearm you have. You've got to know what kind of bullet you have to know your, how far that bullet travels. You have to know it's a lot of things that you have to know. And so if you're popping off 15 rounds and your neighbor lives as close to me and hey, that's not a good situation. So, you know, basically that's what I was trying to say in a nice way.
all right. Last thing on the list is the minute approval for the August 17 regular meeting. I understand there was a small issue with the motion.
Mayor, I talked with, city clerk earlier. It was just a typo left out my name on, the August 17th minutes. Item number 2, SPLOST 2023 referendum, says council member made a motion, it should say council member Venable.
Okay, so do I have a motion to approve the minutes from August 17 meeting with the correction on item number 2?
Motion to approve August 17th, 2021
Do I-
minutes with the correction.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Motion carries. And at this point, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Well, more minutes.
Oh, we do?
Call meeting, minutes to approve.
Look at this. September 9th, that's today. So agenda is not as, all right, so I stand corrected. I got,
Ready to go.
okay, so, where's the other minutes? Well, all right, September 3rd minutes, do I have a motion to accept?
Motion to approve September 3rd, 2021 minutes as read.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Motion carries. Okay.
Now we can motion to adjourn.
See, listen at you.
You're okay now.
Wow. Do I have a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting?
Motion to adjourn?
I can say a minute.
Ms. Hattie, second. All those in favor? Thank you. I guess, then another lady.
They don't know. I know it was.
Mayor.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Campbell. Yes, sir.